Hey guys, what's going on? It's the NRL Fantasy Fanatic coming at you round number 8 from round number 7. This week we're going to be talking about the Nathan Cleary captaincy's choice from last week. Did we go right or wrong? Can you still get onto him? We're going to talk about a few players that have gone big that I'm possibly going to avoid going into this week in terms of trades, because I don't want to get sucked into a bad situation for my team or jeopardize what we're doing here. And a couple of key injuries we had throughout the week, and also the trades I'm looking at. So it is Thursday already. We're only a couple of hours away from kickoff by the time you're watching this video. The reality is, this is my team post the trades. Obviously, I had Curran playing, who got injured with his knee, only scored 31, and Jack Bird, who had a suspected broken arm, 17, but is named again. It's quite odd. I'm not quite sure. It's like you either go on the complete brink of being completely out and injured, or you're playing. So I don't quite get that. So my team was quite affected by injuries, but we had good scores all around across the paddock. Dave Fifita did get shifted to the center spot as a trial. I don't know why they were thinking that was a good idea to even do, but they did. So each to their own. He will not get center status unless he plays there for 3 weeks, which isn't going to happen. He's back in the second row, as we're aware now. I don't know, maybe they're trying to replicate Talatau and completely beating up Morgan Harper on that edge and going completely ham for all those coaches out there that had him in his team. But the number one point we'll talk about is Nathan Cleary. Now, we spoke about him last week. We thought he'd bottomed out in his price, and that seems to have been the case. He's gone back up in dollar value. He scored a very good 85 without tries, and we said the prior week that we're expecting him to score a try within the next 3 weeks and even topple whatever scores he's already got. So I think if you're on the verge of, hey, or you've hit that fork and you're like, hey, I either throw out some of my good players and bring Nathan Cleary in, or I just don't bring Nathan Cleary in for the season, I just deal with it. I think you've got to make that this week, because he is a solid captain's choice that's going to be there for the majority of teams that have him. You wouldn't put the C on anyone else, because consistently he's a absolute brilliant scorer. Even though you've got to make some sacrifices with trading out some key players like we did last week, it's definitely worth it. We spoke about the stock market, how they've benefited, being a blue chip share as opposed to dealing with penny stocks, and the roller coaster that may be associated with penny stocks or players that can go big one game and quiet the next. So, which goes into our next segment, Talatau. We've got to talk about this guy. Now, I didn't follow the trend. I spoke about that a few weeks ago. I didn't like the idea of him playing in the center, and I've said this since we started fantasy. There are guys out there with Katoni Staggs and Isaiah Katego, etc. All those players that can go big, but there are going to be times where they just don't get the ball. And Talatau got a lot of ball in the first half, and he set himself up quite a few times, and his teammates, and he scored ridiculously, rounded up to the 100 mark. The reality is, 90% of the points he scored were in the first half. In the second half, he scored like 10. And that can happen. But that can happen over a duration of an entire game. You can just have a game where, as a center or winger, you just don't get the ball. Like, look at Xavier Coates, scoring 68, the highest he's scored in a very long time. Highest he's scored this season. And people were expecting these big scores because the Melbourne Storm would just be setting him up left, right, and center. But that didn't appear to be the case, because the Melbourne Storm have plenty of strike across the field, and they all like to score. So sometimes the winger just doesn't get the ball. But in this case, it puts 70 points on the Warriors, and naturally your winger is going to be involved in that in one way or another. So my point is, Talatau now has a low break-even, and he will go up in value this week. It's inevitable, but for me, if I trade him in, I feel like I'm just going to be trading him out in a fortnight, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. So I can't, jeopardize my team for, paying for someone that's 676k. And it's great that he has the center status, but that is so much money. I could trade him in now for like a Jack Bird or Euan Aitken. I just don't know if he's going to have the consistency. Fitzgibbon is also unsure if he'll continue to play in the center's starting spot. He may drop back to the bench when the full rotation's back. I don't know. We don't know. It seems to be the case that he's played himself in a very good position to hold the spot. I don't know why you'd want to mess with that unless you're expecting him to come off the bench and be like a relief player that can have a big impact with fresh legs. But it seems to be working for him. But I'm just not convinced. Every fantasy season I've participated in, which is years and years, every time you pay the big bucks for a center, like a genuine center, a center who's playing in the centers, you're just going to have this up and down game. Whereas Euan Aitken, he's averaging 49.1. Yes, it is lower than Talatau. Yes, he has scored more than Euan Aitken because of a few good games that he's had. But across the season, I would expect Euan Aitken to outscore Talatau. And I know that's potentially extremely unpopular opinion, but I just don't believe in chasing players. Now, one of the coolest things about Supercoach is that you can see the highest traded players week in and week out, who's going into teams, who's going out. Talatau was the number one traded player. But I will say this for Supercoach is that every week you see a trend of someone's had a good game and then everyone has to jump on him. And by everyone, I don't mean everyone. I mean a good portion of people, like 10, 15, 20% of coaches. And then they're disappointed the next week when they don't turn up. In saying that, Talatau could come out, absolutely kill it. And, go on and on for a few weeks. And I might be, this might be a complete ironic video. But I'm not convinced. I don't want to dabble down that craft. I think it's good now that he's got both center and edge. He can cover both spots in case you got an injury. But I'm just not going to pay $676K for a center. I just don't want to do that. So, for those of you who brought him in a week ago, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, good on you. Absolutely killed it. You've made the right choice. Similar to my Nico Hines blunder, not having him. A lot of people do. He's killing it. So, you have to die on the hill or die on the sword sometimes with your teams. And, for me, jumping on him now, the reality is I'm late. I've missed the boat. And if I want to try to catch up to the people who brought in Talatau, I have to have a point of difference to those teams. And that's having all these offshoot players. That's the only way I'm going to be able to climb the ladder at the moment. If you're on the top 100, top 200, top 1,000, top 2,000, jumping on the players who are doing really well is a no-brainer. But if you're trailing, like myself, and you jump up, following all the people in the top 1,000 spots won't get you there. So we've got to risk it for the biscuit. Sucks to be in that position, but it is what it is. So that does the Talatau segment. As for injuries, now I'm really perplexed this week. My two trades, I got rid of Nanai and Randall. Randall and Nanai have peaked. People are saying Nanai hasn't necessarily peaked. He has a big game in him. The reality is the guy also has a lot of errors and a lot of missed tackles in him. And that's always going to be his downfall from having a great score and a good score, which is unfortunate. So my thinking into this week was I want to bring in someone who's consistently scoring this year, and I want to bring in a cheapie who I think is going to give me some Origin cover because we're only a couple of weeks away. Round 13 is going to be the first Origin week, and how you'd evaluate that is if you go to the NRL website, if you don't have the fantasy coach and you're not paying for it, you just go to round 13, evaluate the 8 teams that are playing this week. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to bring in 2 players that will be playing in the Origin week, or at least that I think will be playing, because that's another way to catch up. Pre-buy planning, getting the players that you need now as opposed to later is a good time. Round 8 is a good time to do that. So I brought in Tomalolo. Tomalolo's stats have improved drastically from last year. He was being shifted from front row prop to the second row on the edge, and then back and forward. Didn't really know how to utilize him properly. Now he's back in at lock consistently. Yes, he's only scoring 60 minutes. Yes, he's only playing 60 minutes. But he has absolutely amazing base stats. He's averaging 49.7 this season. Now, that might get frowned upon a little bit, but if you can bring in a player that's going to score you 50 points week in, week out on good ground defensive base stats like he has, he's been getting 40 points each week in base stats alone, that just gives you a good plateau or a platform to kind of springboard off, because the week that he goes big, scores a try, gets a couple of more line breaks, does a tackle bust, that's when you're going to see 60, 70, maybe even 80. So I brought him in. He's going to be playing in round 13 as a Cowboys player, which meant I had to also bring in a cheapie to offset that. And so I've done something a little bit different. Other people seem to be catching on him now that when I traded him in, it was like 0.8%. Now it's 3.6%. That's Sonny Luke. Now, he's a no-name, coming up the ranks. He's playing the hooker role with Appy. He played very, very little minutes, but he had a big impact on that match. 26 minutes, so he played, just over a quarter of the game time. He loved running the ball. He didn't miss any tackles. Got a try assist for his efforts. He loved running the ball and getting involved, and you can see he had a bit of snap and a bit of kicker to him. Now, I'm not bringing him in to play in my interchange or my starting 13. I've brought him in as an emergency because basement price, 228,000. You're not going to get any cheaper than that. But come round 13, I'm still expecting Appy to be picked up by New South Wales. It may not happen, but that's where he played last year. I expect the same to happen, and that's why I think that Ivan Cleary is starting to bring this kid for the first time onto the bench, because they've always had an 80-minute hooker. They had Wade Egan, who came on a bit in the prior years, many, many moons ago. But Appy, for most part, had been playing, big minutes without a composite hooker on the bench, and they finally brought him in. Ivan Cleary's thinking here is, in my opinion, they want to blood him in. Appy's leaving the following season. They're blooding him in. They've also got a little bit of origin cover, and they've got a bit of cover in case Appy actually does get injured. So, I'm not basing this trade in to say Appy will get injured. This kid's going to play 60 minutes the following week. That's not going to happen. That's extremely unlikely. Appy's actually got an extreme good rate of not having injuries and playing throughout a season. I think bringing him on, basement price, easy cash out option for me. He seems to have sustained a spot in the 17, which is pretty big. So I think he's going to be playing, and then when we get to the Origin round 13, my expectation is that he'd start and probably see 50, 60 minutes, and that's when we can jump up a little bit more. So basement price, Origin cover, emergency, potential to go up, maybe to 280, maybe to 300, depending how he goes over the next couple of weeks. He's playing for the Panthers. Panthers have a very good flow-on forward pack. Easy to eat up meters. Easy to put himself in a position where he's attacking with the side, as you would have already seen in the prior week when he got a try assist. So, for me, that's my two trades. I do have 170k up my sleeve to spend. I do have Josh Curran sitting on the bench. Problem I have, and this is my next segue, going into injuries. My problem is with Jack Bird. Jack Bird does not play till, I think, the last round on Sunday. So, we haven't had any updates. Is he actually permanently injured? Is he out? If so, I'll have to bring in Koula. But I don't have anything to go off right now. There's not much on it. And it's the same as Josh Curran. All we know is that he's out and he's hurt his knee. And the only way to check up on these things is just by going to Google or searching all the different Facebook groups and hoping someone pops something up. These are all saying, as you can see, these are purple because I've been clicking on them. These are all saying, they're 1 or 2 days old, so there's nothing new that's come in that's kind of given me the weeks that he's out. And this is the casualty award, which will pretty much tell me the latest and greatest per their website. So, Josh Curran, he's still, we don't know. So it's hard for me to trade him out because he's been very consistent for me. If he's only out for a week, I think it'd be great to push him back into my starting spot, to the starting squad as a no-brainer, and playing him. But the other trade we made last week was Thierry Martin. He seems to have done really well. 43, ownership's gone up a little bit since. He's got good cover over the half and fullback spot. So I think that's another way that you can think about another trade up your sleeve. But at the moment, I'm reasonably happy with the squad. It could be better, but it also could be a lot worse. I've just got to see how the next week goes and what potential gun or keeper I want to bring in. Trying to keep the same rules as someone who's not going to play Origin, which is hard because most of the time the good scoring guns are Origin players naturally, unless they're international Pacific Islanders like Tomalolo. So we'll see how that plays out. I hope you all have had a great week and good luck this weekend with your fantasy. Let me know what trades you're making. Let me know if you like my trades, Tomalolo and Sonny Luke. Maybe you don't. Maybe you think they're bad trades. Maybe you think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but, you know, I think Tomalolo is pretty solid, pod 8.8%, and, you know, we'll go from there. Hopefully I don't get stuck with Jack Bird not playing, but we got a bit of cover, so we're all good. But enjoy this week, guys. Take it easy, and remember, don't follow all the sheep. Do what you got to do. Take advice from many different sources on the internet, including mine. Make your own trades, make your own assessment, do your own research, and get those trades popping. Thanks, guys. Whoosh.